Welcome to this presentation of the World Historical Periodic Table. This chart is a creation aiming to visualize and provide a relevant context for major historical and anthropological developments in Western Eurasia. As the name suggests, the basic structure is inspired by the periodic table of elements in chemistry. This makes it somewhat unique, in my opinion, among other well-known timelines of world history. The chart covers the entire period of the Holocene and operates at a macro and civilizational scale to present a big picture view of human history to the exclusion of any fine-grained details, and also omitting some regions and cultures at my own discretion to make the whole as useful and aesthetic as possible. I am actually quite pleased with the final design, and I think it makes a very good poster with easily accessible information about general trends and cultural horizons, including political groupings such as the Roman or Persian empires of antiquity. You can access the full-size graphic on the Substack link in the video description. While all parts of this table are well researched, it doesn't include academic references and isn't meant to be used as reference literature. Rather, it provides the broad context at a quick glance and creates a visual framework for mapping and thinking about historical events, which is innovative and I think makes it a very useful companion, at least to my personal study and meditation on human history, out of which this grew from the start. Now let's walk through the structure and elements of this document. First, this is basically the geographical scope of the material, focusing on Europe, the Mediterranean world, and the Near East. Next, in the left margin of the chart, I have included an adaptation of the Indo-European language tree based on the research of linguist Don Rinch and colleagues, which is still often referenced in Indo-European studies, and is the only academic citation including in this chart. This language tree aligns well with the step hypothesis of Indo-European origins and can therefore be projected onto the main elements of the table to think about migrations and genetic studies and so on. The vertical axis is a timeline ranging from 10,000 BC until modern times. The chronology is not displayed uniformly throughout its span. Instead, time is divided into 4 quarters of increasing magnification to visually compress the very slow developments on the very top quarter shelf in the earliest part of history and allow for the greater dynamics and more precise dates of later developments. This vertical structure approximates the traditional 3H system of the Stone, Bronze and Iron Ages, which is very convenient. Situated in the right margin are differently colored labels used for color coding the main elements of the chart, creating 16 basic cultural groupings as an extra dimension apart from time and geography. The horizontal axis is the spatial dimension, where each column represents a geographical area which can be either large or small, and they can be more or less precisely defined. It follows a logical movement from west to east in just over half of the table to the right, while in the remaining left part the longitudinal order of the columns is actually reversed by design, creating a continuous northern and southern arc of adjacent regions that converge in southwest Europe in the west and around Central Asia in the east. Let's have a closer look at the first region of the chart to understand the vertical structure of each column. Here you can follow how the North Caucasus progresses from the Epipaleolithic into the Neolithic dark viticulture, and then enters the Bronze Age, where all of these archaeological cultures are very significant to the study of Indo-European origins, as well as the development of metalworking and general civilization. In the Iron Age, we see the various Scythian-related tribes occupying the area, followed by Turkic and Asiatic nomads dominating the Great Steppe throughout the Middle Ages. In the early modern period, the North Caucasus is colonized by the Russian Empire, and it remains part of Russia today. Now, unfortunately, some regions are geographically close and historically connected, but situated far apart on the periodic table as a consequence of the northern and southern parallel arcs. Most notably here the North and South Caucasus, which, if you'd want to compare them side by side, would look something like this. The chart is easily navigable enough, though, in my opinion, and this type of flaw is a trade-off in terms of design. Just north of the Caucasus region is the Pontic-Caspian steppe, while to its south we find the Fertile Crescent area. These are both very important regions in human history, and while they are pretty much situated right on top of each other on an east-to-west axis on a map, it makes a lot of sense to think of them as part of separate northern and southern arcs of continuous regions in terms of their respective histories. This is a showcase of the general geographic structure of the chart, with the Mediterranean world at its center and a lesser depth view of South and Central Asia to the right. Here are some additional maritime groupings of adjacent regions: Western Europe facing the Atlantic, the area around Greece and the Bosphorus, and some regions around the South Caspian Sea. And these are a few cultural and geographical groupings that roughly correspond to mountain ranges. Now let's have a look at a very practical application for studying history. Looking closer at the upper part of the table, you can follow the Neolithic transition very intuitively. Beginning in the Fertile Crescent, sedentary agriculture spreads in a concentric fashion and gives rise to Neolithic civilization in Anatolia and Greece to the west, and in Iran and India to the east. The Neolithic farmer people then spread into Europe following two main and distinct trajectories. One along the Danube river system into Central and Northern Europe, forming the linear pottery culture, the so-called Old Europe civilization that flourished until the Indo-European invasions, and another pathway along the Mediterranean and Atlantic coasts, commonly called the Cardinal Ware culture. Finally, the cultures associated with the dispersal of Proto-Indo-European language in the late Neolithic and early Bronze Age, according to the Steppe or Kurgan hypothesis, are given special attention in this work. The design reflects a general consensus view that the Anatolian branch was the first to split off early from the main trunk, perhaps around 4000 BC. Scholars associate the spread of this branch with the Chernavoda and later Ezero culture in the Thrace region in what is today Bulgaria. Next, the migration into Siberia of the Afanasyevo culture is associated with the Tokharian branch around 3300 BC. And then we see the massive migration of Yamnaya-related people deep into Central Europe, forming the corded ware and bell beaker cultures, inaugurating the Bronze Age in Northern Europe and establishing a lasting genetic landscape. This cultural horizon is associated with the dissemination of all remaining known Indo-European language families, including the break-off and eastward spread of an Indo-Iranian branch, which later migrates south into the Middle East and India during the Middle Bronze Age. Now I invite you to enjoy and explore this rich document yourself as you immerse yourself in the history of West Eurasia. Feel free to share, criticize, or improve on this chart as you like. Thank you.